We are red's on.
Okay, good evening and welcome to Thursday, January 2nd, 2020, Selectmen's meeting. First thing we have is pledge allegiance. All speak.
I pledge you to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You guys got to decide who's leading.
Well, nobody was going. So.
Pick a number.
Okay, so we've got the first thing, the minutes of 12/19. I think everybody has those.
Should you have put into, instead of available by cell phone, you should have said conference call? Because it was, you listed me as absent. And yet I was,
On my phone.
right, it needs to be worded just a little bit different.
Yeah, because technically you weren't absent.
Right. We can fix
Because
that.
right, the next sentence, it says, Selectmen constitute would raise a concern.
We can fix that.
Can't be if you're absent.
Right, we'll fix it.
Okay.
Under Kevin LaChapelle, there may have been a brief discussion, but I think we left out quite a few points that should be in the discussion. One of which being is the multiple numbers that are going to be floated around, which was why I voted no.
As did I. No, I
You
declined. to vote
declined.
For the same reason.
Do you want to go on about your antenna?
No, I could beat that dead horse.
You don't want it in the minutes? We have to go to video?
Is an abstention considered no and a decline is just a decline?
An abstention in Robert's Rules of Order is that you are agreeing with the majority vote.
Might be yes or no.
Right.
Yeah.
So when I declined to vote, usually I state a reason, and I did here, I declined to vote because of the confusion. But I'm not gonna.
Could vote present.
Right, it's like sometimes I decline to sign documents, so
It's
you
kind
could
of, it's
decline
kind
to
of
sign.
confusing here when you say
So-
motion carried 3-1.
The changes that wanted to that paragraph would be to include some information such as, Peter, how would other?
Well, you have a guaranteed max price, you've got a bonding price that may be $194,000 higher, so you keep changing figures along the way rather than come out from the get-go. This is the number, and here's the parts of it.
So, part would,
I was just gonna put something like, there were concerns noted about the different pricing or the different numbers. And I can go on and say, you know, the bond is a different number than the guaranteed maximum price. They are two separate numbers, and there are
Correct.
reasons behind them.
okay, so clarifying, but that was some.
We don't have the other part of that number yet.
Okay.
On page 2, And I don't remember, the chief commented about the change in the dispatch, needs to go up for the CBA negotiations for moving forward. Does it need to come to the Board of Selectmen as well? I mean, it's our negotiation with the union.
Where, Catherine, did you say?
Under Chief Robert Cormier,
Yeah.
we mentioned last week about making the change to the dispatch,
Mhm.
which he understood needs to be brought before the CBA negotiations before moving forward. Doesn't he need the Board of Selectmen's approval before it goes to? Because it's our negotiation, you
But
and
this
you are our representatives.
Yes, this is but my understanding is here where we need to, this is worded a little bit different. I think what was said was we need to check the union contract to see if that's in the language is in the union contract first before we make the changes. If it's not, we need to add it to the negotiations because we are making changes now. But yes, technically you're right, it needs to be added to negotiations and then ultimately the selectmen approve before anything's done.
Right, so can we change that wording to, well, Pat's out.
Right. So the chief wants to make a change. So we need to first find out if it's in the language, current language of the contract. If it is, then it needs just the approval of the board to say, yes, go ahead and make that change.
I guess what I would say, rather than you, is I'll have Gail go back and listen to the tape and be more explicit in what the conversation is, because that's what should be reflected in the minutes, not.
If you remember, halfway through the conversation, it said, oh no, it needs to be a non-public, because it's not really a non-public though, because it's not a negotiated item. So if there's a position change, if there's a title change, we first need to see if it's in the PELRB language in the contract.
But
So that's not a that's not
But in any event, what
talking
we're
about
talking
our
about
negotiations.
here for this is, I'll just ask Gail to go back and listen
Right.
and be more explicit in the language.
Yeah,
Well, then, whatever we do, we have to take out where he says he may be making, he would like to make a change,
right.
but may be making gives him,
He
sounds
asked
like
the
he has the
board,
authority to do just that, he
Right.
doesn't.
I agree with Catherine, the chief asked the board to make a change in a dispatch position. That's what it would be.
So verify the
That's-
language
yeah.
and what
Yes,
the
I'll verify
he
the
stated.
language.
And going along with that same paragraph, Mr. Chairman, the second paragraph where it was asked the board was to reduce the budget by 1%. Can we add under there that the board was in agreement? We did take a vote after that. Under the budget, it says, as Tim Pearson noted, there really isn't any discretionary money within the department's budget. We did take a vote, we did take a consensus after that, and we were all in agreement that we would leave the police budget as is. That last paragraph under the chief.
Yep, I mean, we can put that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Down further where it begins, Selectman Gossett moves, seconded by Selectman Jessamine to fund $4 million. It says to fund of the 2020 budget, isn't it to approve? We're not gonna supply the funds.
Right.
Yeah, it would be approved,
To approve.
To approve,
because we approved all the lines and whatever.
$4 million blah blah for the 2020 budget.
Okay.
Doesn't that make more sense?
I might have said fund though. I
Yeah,
might
you
have. Might have.
But I guess, and I'll have to go back and look, but just, if that's what was said, then that's
That's
what
what's-
needs to be said.
Right,
Yeah.
so let's check it, because if we said it,
Right.
we were wrong.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense that would have got biased.
Then you would need to make another statement for tonight's minutes to correct last statement that was made last week.
What about the funding?
Well,
Yeah.
it's,
We don't know if it's right or not.
we,
No,
You
I
know,
said
it-
it was true.
it's not that big a deal because we haven't, that's not the bottom line.
No. There's still more to go.
That's right. But you're right.
Make a motion to approve the minutes as corrected.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as corrected. The motion was made by Pat, and the second was by Joe. We can make sure that we vote very clearly so that Gail can get accurate counts and all that on it. And everybody use the microphones here. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? So moved. So we have is the acceptance of donation for the senior center.
What's the matter?
I was looking, my folder was on the left side here. Thank you. Okay, so this is a donation from James. Okay, this is gonna be, Nakiewicz, trustee for Teresa N. Snyder. And from the Snyder family, it looks like, Teresa N. Snyder.
Mhm.
And it's for the senior center in the amount of $1,000.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you very much.
It says, it's donation for senior center.
Was that a motion?
Make a motion, we accept.
And I'll second that.
May I make a statement, please?
Yes, please.
It, in the
Right to the
past,
microphone.
thank you very much, and that, we're very blessed to have that donation. In the past, those donations, I've gotten a copy of them, so I can handwrite a thank you note for each and every one of them. In the last 6 or 8 months, I've not gotten any of them. I was not even aware of this coming in. So I would really appreciate if I could just get a copy, either in my folder or whatever, so that as a chairman of the executive committee, I can write to them and thank them personally.
Is this a copy that?
You can do that, Pat. Yeah.
Thanks.
Got that down, Pat.
Thank you.
And the next thing, we have Tim Pearson. Come on down.
Happy New Year to you. How's that grandbaby?
2020.
Just fine.
Excellent.
Very cute, very happy,
Yeah,
very
nice.
innocent,
Yeah.
very neat.
Uh-huh.
Didn't feel like Eva.
Thanks.
nothing quite like working a weekend to 2 days, which has been my week this week, so if you bear with me. Before we get into the budget, I just want to mention a couple of things. The New Hampshire Municipal Bond Bank has refinanced some of the series of debt, and we're going to realize $75,690 worth of savings between 2025 and 2036. So that's good news.
Yep.
Bad news is it's not going to happen soon.
2025, yeah.
Right. But and there's some odd things in the debt schedule. There's one entire year in there that there's no savings at all, and then it picks back up. It's odd, but in any case, I'll update all our debt schedules for that. There was a question last time I was before you on milfoil and who was paid what. And we paid out $5,000, the trustees, I should say, paid out $5,107.50 to the Winnisquam Watershed Network and Silver Lake Association.
Oh, nice.
All the details are in that packet from the Conservation Commission.
Oh, thank you very much.
And
What's the current fund balance?
so, as of the end of November, we were at $4,395, and we'll probably add about, very minimal interest in it, so figure about $4,400.
Did you have something to add to it?
Yeah, I've got some information that people requested what they were planning on doing next year. They've already been, I've got copies of their bids actually that they've accepted, but these are the areas that they're planning on treating, and their bids will due in November and I think December. So they will be asking for funds, which will.
Yes. We need it in a couple of places.
There is also Silver Lake. There's been some interest from Silver Lake, and they're talking with these guys on seeing if they can get some work done by the same people. So.
Yeah, right now, the warrant article is for $6,000 to be put into that local fund.
And they have $6,000 worth of,
About 4,000.
what was the bids there? Do you
The bids are coming in now. How much was spent last year?
It was 5107, and the Conservation Commission requested that the warrant article be listed at 6,000.
I think that's what they were planning, right around the same amount, but there's also Silver Lake, where they're trying to get the same people who did the work last year on Winnisquam to start working on Silver Lake too.
Because those of the two checks the trustees wrote, one was to the Silver Lake Association, so I assume some of the work was done there, because they each had paid the contractors. I think it was the same company that actually did the work. So in any event, so that accounts for the $6,000 in that milfoil warrant article. The let's see, what you have before you on the cover, it's now updated for expenses as of today. So keep in mind, when you see 2019 actuals updating, what you're seeing is those invoices that are coming in now that were for December timeframe that we'll be updating in our year end, and we'll be cutting that off in February and finally closing out the year at that point. But there are generally some stragglers, so we try to identify all that to make sure we have the expenses properly recorded in the correct period. In addition, I've added the $2,500,000 in the warrant article area for the sewer bond. I did talk to the bond bank. There might be a slight improvement in the rate where both the sewer and the police building bond pass. Wouldn't be a huge amount, but there could be some improvement. They're doing an offering this next week on the 8th, so we'll have a much better picture as to what the rates are going to be looking like at that point. So I think we're still looking, even though they're quoting higher rates right now for planning purposes, I think we're still looking at a sub 2.7 on a 25-year or better note. So in other words, things are still pretty much status quo where they were the last time. But starting next week, we should have a much clearer picture. The July offering, were either of these or both of these to pass at town meeting, we would be in the July offering, and then the funding would come through, the closing would be in mid-August. So there is some money associated with the bond anticipation note. We're having construction fees or monies for construction purposes prior to that gets paid back once the bond is funded. And that's listed in the warrant article for the police building bond. Let's see. Outside of that, the budget, there have been a few changes based on the last meeting that we had, which was on page, let's see here, it's for the town hall maintenance and repairs line where we added $10,000. The board added $10,000 for the building assessment, so the request is now $13,000 for 2020.
What line?
That's on page 3 and the 5th line down. Outside of that, there was one unresolved item, which is on page 12, and that was Child and Family Services Waypoint, which had requested $3,000, and there was some discussion about whether the budget committee was waiting on additional information.
And I'd sent down an email and checked with the chair and the secretary, and they said that they had no additional information coming on Waypoint.
Did the board want to take action and vote on that item?
Is that the only one outside agency we haven't voted on?
That's correct.
Cool.
No. it was done.
Does the board wish to?
When was the last time we reached out to them?
I'm sorry?
When was the last time that we reached out to them for this information? Have you included?
I don't believe there was any information being sought.
No,
No,
That was the clarification.
I don't know why the budget committee didn't vote on it, but.
Oh, okay.
Make a motion, we fund for $3,000 for Child and Family Services.
Let's second
We didn't fund them last year?
That's correct.
Well, we didn't fund Waypoint last year,
It was just a name change.
right? Right?
Did the budget committee fund them last year?
No.
Why?
I think there was some
Oh, yeah,
confusion
of course there
in the
was.
transition of the change,
that. The chair.
the organizational change.
Hmm.
I'll put it that way.
I don't believe they submitted a request for any money last year.
And that could well be, I don't recall off the top of my head.
We've used them for years, the PD's used them for years.
Call the question?
No question, there's no motion?
Yes, there is.
There's a motion and a second.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nobody's adding anything, it's just what you're doing.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? So moved, unanimous?
Yeah, very good. And then also there had been some discussion about the crosswalk. And if you recall, I talked about the second year of revenues we're getting from the state and municipal revenues, the shared revenues, if you will. So just keep in mind as you look at the budget or think about the budget items that you might want to add between now and public hearing, that those revenues are already budgeted, so if you wish to use some of that money to build the crosswalk rather, we would just need to budget some money in here for that. I know there's some discussion about getting grant monies for it, but I would highly recommend that if you think that's a better than 50-50 chance of wanting to put that crosswalk in, that you do budget something for it, because we do have a pretty tight budget.
Can we do the roads, bridges, sidewalks, or the sidewalks fund and take the money out of that fund?
Absolutely. You could use that as well.
Because we haven't really decided what that sidewalks looks like. Is it a solar-powered flashing light? What is it? I don't know.
Right. And from what I understand, the range of expense could be anything from 20 or 30,000 up to 150, depending upon what you want.
Do you know how much is in roads, bridges right now?
Yeah.
The sidewalk one.
He's got plans for that, though.
He does. So right now, as of the end of November, there was 231,000. We also funded it, and we also we funded it with a 94, and then we took out 107 to pay for for some projects. So the board had approved that. So I'd say we're looking at about somewhere in the 198 range.
But there are grants, well, there's the money that could be used towards that, and there are grants available for that too, right?
That's what I'm being told.
Potential.
So what we talked about before was that the municipal money, that one-time money that came to the town, it was 150 or something like that. You got 70, and then I think there's another 70 or 75, which I thought would, if you were interested, and I know you talked about several different crosswalks, but if there are grants out there, the likelihood is high that they look for matching money. So it would be good to set something aside. Now you're talking about taking it out of that fund, and I just remind you that you still haven't, I guess, finished up with Academy Street. I don't know what we're doing there. I do plan to schedule a meeting with the water district, because we still haven't kind of finished up with them in terms of what's going on over there. So that's going to happen sometime in January. But I just want to remind you that that's still a project we've got up there, so that money could be eaten up pretty quickly.
Right, and the reason I mentioned the shared revenue is that because we've already budgeted it, you wouldn't be able to use that for the project unless you add it to your budget, some of your expense budget. So we would have to add some money in here, or a combination of money in here, plus the fund, because that's already baked into our revenue projections for the year, the 75,000.
Wish I knew how much money we're looking to spend.
Yeah, I feel let's not increase the budget and go for grants, and, as it evolves, it takes a while to do these things anyway.
Maybe next year we have a better idea of what the
Exactly.
potential cost is and what the grants are.
Well, we have enough money for matching amounts, so for the grant.
Oh,
I think we're all in agreement
Joe
that
said
we
we
want
take
one
it out of
there.
the reserve fund.
Catherine,
Hmm?
I think we're all in agreement that we want one there, right?
I am.
I think there's,
Where? Well, I mean,
Look.
we've
I
talked
think
about
there's two
several
that we
places.
absolutely need. One is the Tilton House of Pizza, because for some reason they're just so dark there, that crosswalk, and the new crosswalk, yes, across the riverfront.
Riverfront. So I would put in the riverfront one first, have that as a priority, and then the T-Hawk one.
But as I said, my guess is very strongly that, so it's, really, what's your priority? Do you want to try to get it done this year? If you do want to, it's almost assuredly going to be a match. So you're not going to get 100% funded. That last quote that we got from DOT for what they said would be acceptable for them to go there, I want to say that was like $50,000. So assuming we found a grant, it would be at least a 50-50. So,
Take it out of the reserve fund.
So the only downside of that is if there are other things planned or some emergency where you need to prepare something.
Well, we don't have a 10-year plan, so we don't know. We have an old 10-year plan that we've deviated from considerably.
So that's the only caveat I would say. So for now, you want to leave the budget as is?
What would you recommend?
I mean, if there were, if you know you're going to do one and you have an idea of what it's going to cost, I would put some money in, even if it.
It's like $15,000 towards it,
I would think so. I mean,
hitting the capital reserve too hard.
I can't say that we always have savings from personnel, but we have in the last 2 years. You know, where we've had budget monies and someone's left and it's taken a while to replace them, you know, that kind of thing. It's not to say that's going to happen in 2020, but there may be other projects that this would take a higher priority to.
It's a just in case. It's a maybe. It's a, hopefully we can make it happen. So why wouldn't we take it out of the reserve fund, not impact this budget, and then perhaps
You certainly
impact
could.
next year's budget by putting it back into the reserve fund?
You certainly could.
and it's a safety issue. I mean, that's what I'm hearing from you, it's a safety issue.
I agree with
Bishop
you.
Park.
I mean, if we know about this, and we know, I can't tell you how many times how many years now we've heard about this issue and a safety issue, and how many events that we've had at Riverfront Park that it comes up every single time. We really need to be proactive on this before something really does happen. And, you know, $10,000 or $15,000 put aside for this, and be proactive so that we can really push it this year, so that we can have something.
Would that be a separate line item for that?
Either-
Or would that just be put into the?
Either that, or you could simply just increase the road, streets, bridges fund, if you wanted to make sure it was non-lapsing and that it was specifically for that purpose.
If it was specifically for that purpose, but if you put it in there, it's not gonna be specifically for that purpose.
Well, it would be for roads, streets, bridges, sidewalks, which,
Right.
you know, would qualify for that
So
crosswalk.
if this board is non-existent in March, then we could make a different decision on roads, streets, and bridges in May
Right, so.
for something different.
But you have more insurance that will be used within that realm, as opposed to if it's just
For the
simply
intent.
$15,000 in the operating budget. There's nothing that says it has to be spent on
Good point.
on that. So the only other thing I could think of is to make it a separate warrant article and see if the townspeople want to support that for a certain amount of money. But then we would need better information as to, you know, what something's going to cost. You know, and maybe we have that already. Maybe we have something that we can.
Well, I
Yeah, actionable.
don't know for sure, because I'm not sure that the selectmen support what the DOT is asking them to put in. So, I think that's a great idea, but it's gonna, if you need information, I don't know that I'm gonna be able to get all that in time for warrant article.
So maybe.
Well, I'm going to make a motion that we put an additional $15,000 into the sidewalks, roads, and bridges funds for going towards the crosswalk, and I know that we can't say it will definitely go there, but that's the intention. And that way we'll carry over. That's my motion. So,
I'll second it.
Can we do that with roads, bridges, and sidewalks? Can we do that? Isn't that a capital reserve?
Yes, it is. It would have to be added to the
94,000.
warrant article.
Oh, so we're adding it to the warrant article?
Right, so it'd be
to be-
109,000.
Okay, so
That's
this
nice.
is contingent on passing at town meeting with the explanation that we're putting $15,000 towards a light at a passing crosswalk at Riverfront Park.
And you're using a dark figure. I mean, like I said, you could still take it out of the reserve fund this year without putting any more money into it. And then when you have an exact figure, You're gonna put it back in next year saying, well, this is
But we
this is
have,
our portion.
I'm sorry.
I mean, you can use the monies right now without putting 15,000. I think the times of,
There's no guarantee
Just
this
in
is gonna
case-
happen for several years.
Exactly.
It just isn't, as much as we would love
We
it.
have a
raise and
recommendation from
appropriate
the
things
state,
just in
though.
case.
Mhm.
We have a recommendation from the state of what they would approve to be put there. And we have a cost associated with that. So
50,000?
she doesn't have the exact figure in front of
Yeah.
her, but she does have it downstairs.
Yeah.
So we do have that, the recommendation from the state. What Jeannie doesn't have is the approval from the board that that's what, the way we would want to go.
Mhm.
So by March, we could have significant forward information on this at town meeting to add to this and say, this is the recommendation from the state, this is how much it costs, this is the contractor, this is where we can go with it.
Couldn't we amend that line
And we can amend it at town meeting.
at
That's
town meeting
right.
if we have the
That's right.
information? So we wouldn't
Don't have to do
necessarily
that.
have to do it right this second. And we could have a discussion, yeah, we could have a discussion at town meeting and see where the town lies.
You also could negotiate with DOT about that plan of theirs, because it's pretty grandiose compared to what they've put in another place.
You got that right, there will be some negotiating.
Anyway. Yeah.
So I call the question.
Oh, was there a second? Oh,
There was a
second.
second.
I second it.
So, all those in favor, say aye. Opposed?
Nay. Okay, we're good.
That's hysterical.
Okay.
Well, we went around the block to get there, but we're there.
Wow, it was great,
Well,
actually.
yeah.
It was great.
So then we now have a complete budget.
What? I have one more.
Oh, sorry.
One more.
Yeah.
So, back in September, Selectman Constantino brought forward to the board this idea of a van. You remember the conversation for the senior center?
I can barely hear you.
A van for the senior center?
Oh, yes.
All right, and at that time, you all approved for us to go forward to look at, to apply for the grant. To apply for the grant, there's a requirement of a match, and that amount was $6,000. So I went back and just kind of reviewed the minutes again, just to make sure that everything was the way I understood it. And it is inferred in the minutes, but it's not specific. It doesn't say that you exactly voted for the $6,000. It says, Selectman Justman moved, seconded by Selectman Constantino, to apply for the grant for a vehicle for the senior center. And the motion carried 4-1. But above that, there was assuming a $70,000 cost for the vehicle, there would need to be $6,000 budgeted for this program match. So I'm just asking you, I want, I guess, clarification that you all understood, or that that was your intent to also put $6,000 in the budget for the match, because it's not in the budget right now.
That was my personal
And there's a
intention.
very good possibility of getting that this year by March.
I think, and we can use it all sorts of ways, no doubt.
Right.
Maybe a
think-
town-owned vehicle, right?
It would be
The
town.
town-owned vehicle.
One of the things that I asked for, and I remember distinctly saying, well, we'll go ahead and apply for the grant, but we're not approving purchasing it,
Oh.
is what I took from that. I don't think we approved purchasing the van, and asked specifically for the operating costs, what it would cost for a driver for the van, what it would cost to operate the van, the maintenance, the gasoline, the other costs for it. And the other thing is, why is there a need if we already have transportation out there? I think it's just another thing that's gonna cost a lot of money for the town,
Have
and
transportation out there.
it's not always free.
What other transportation do we have for the senior center?
Was it the cap bus picks people up?
The CAP bus picks them up at a very specific time, and most of the time when they do that, they make a circle. They go from Franklin to drop them off and go to Laconia, Belmont, and back, and sometimes they don't have enough time to eat their meal, but they have to be picked up again. And so by having our own vehicle, we can go and pick up from our, let's say, Franklin Apartments, and we can have them eat their meals. At a special event, we can go and pick them up. We can go and pick them up for Wednesday night music, which they don't drive at night. Pick them up and go and take them to a doctor's appointment, whatever.
So
But they don't, there's a lot more than we can use them for. We have to get on a list in order to, and we have to, there has to be a driver available through CAP. It's a CAP-owned van, and it's very, very, very far and few between to get that, months in advance. So it's not readily available at all, John. Very rare that you get that, even for a special event. You
The
can't get it.
volunteer driver program is spotty.
Right, and
If
so,
you have a volunteer available, and if the volunteer's card, you know, I mean,
it would be a driver, the drivers would be volunteer
So-
for this vehicle.
Okay, I understand that.
Right,
Um,
it would be
The
maintenance.
cost
Right,
in gasoline, we do not have a line item that's appropriate for covering for this. If we get it, we don't. Insurance.
So I'll read the minutes. It says, assuming a $70,000 cost per vehicle, there would need to be $6,000 budgeted for this program match. Selectman Constantino talked about the benefits of having a vehicle for the senior center, albeit not exclusively for the senior center, although it would have to be, my understanding of this grant is it can't be used for anything but seniors. Discussion of maintenance and fuel costs, October 29th is a deadline for grant submittal. There's another deadline coming up in March, which is when you would apply for.
right.
There were two opportunities to apply. Selectman Jessman moved, seconded by Selectman Constantino, to apply for the grant for a vehicle for the senior center. Discussion. Vehicle will be a perpetual expense. Joe clarified that his motion was not to address buying a vehicle. Motion carried 4-1. Selectman Dawson opposed. So I think it was in the context of that I was trying to understand what to do, kind of direct me to do was just investigate the grant. Are good to go ahead and do that, or are we also budgeting the $6,000?
So I think in applying for the grant, we will get the information from Cindy Yansky, who's the transportation director. We can certainly, the vans that she has, I'm sure she's going to be able to give us information on maintenance and operating costs on the vans that she has.
Huh.
This is going to be,
Chip, you told me it wasn't.
I didn't think it was.
what?
It's
I was
already in the
just
budget.
looking through because I was thinking, I sort of remember this
Yeah, 'cause
now.
It's already in the
And
budget.
it's
Well,
on page
I
7,
thought it was.
fourth item down.
That was the reason I was, because I
And
had,
that's my fault for having some time off and erasing my memory, so.
I thought it was. Where did you put it?
It's on page 7, fourth item down, senior center transportation grant.
have we made application for that grant?
No,
Okay.
it will be.
Well, we did part of it. We did apply to the RCC, we did present to the RCC and get the approval from the RCC portion of it. Jane went and presented. So there's several steps to it. So we did get that portion of it, which we don't have to go again, and then time got away from us, and that's why now we're gonna go meet with Cindy, Jeannie and I, and go further on this one.
We're still gonna need to look at putting in an amount to maintain and fund gasoline.
Gasoline and maintenance, right?
And how about a driver? Are they required to have a
That
license?
they're gonna be required, CDL, no,
It's not like a regular
not on the
license.
specific ones that we're getting. If we get a 15 passenger, yes, the CDL is required.
Now DOT fiscal card.
Right,
CDL is 26,000 and
Yeah,
above.
medical card.
right.
Medical
Medical
card's
card.
10,000, so
You know,
3/4
we
ton
don't
to a
need a
1
15
ton.
passenger van, I don't think.
No,
And
we don't, Joe.
so I'd like to get the amount that we're planning on spending on maintenance and all that, because it should be in the budget.
Would that come out of the seniors, and I ask this because I don't know, would that come out of the senior center budget, the maintenance of, and the expense of the vehicle, or, and is it just the capital expense that comes from the town? I don't know.
We can discuss it,
Because it can only be used for seniors, so,
right.
but we should make a line.
So there is a line 4, right?
It's gonna take a while to get, John, so we have to, it has to go in,
I mean,
and we have to show that we have matching
and then we have
funds.
to approve it, but
And then you
I
have to
want to see
approve
what
it.
money's going to come to keep it operating.
Correct.
Before I say, okay, let's
Right.
do this.
So, and that's a good
terms.
point, and so I'll meet with the executive committee and see if they're going to approve that. We gotta find out how much it's gonna cost for operating expenses and gas. The drivers are going to be volunteer, whether it's CDL drivers or, and they have to be approved by CAP anyway, to go through the driving course and things for that. Whether it's CDL or non-CDL, the drivers are gonna be volunteer. So, we know that.
Insurance?
And the insurance will be under the town, because it's a town-owned
So
vehicle.
that's an expense.
You know, I'd really like to vote yes to this. We don't do enough for our seniors. We vote, you know, thousands of dollars for outside agencies. We do that. But we're talking about a bus dedicated to our seniors to make their life better.
It's not a bus.
It's
It's a van. It's a van.
A transport vehicle.
That's right.
Right, it's a small bus, yeah.
Short bus.
Transport
Is
down
it
the
a bus or
indoor.
is it a van?
But the point is, if we can vote to fund outside agencies for thousands of dollars, why can't we vote just simply to apply for the grant and get this vehicle for our seniors? It's a new vehicle, is it not? Maintenance is gonna be minimal the first year. It's
Right.
gonna be oil changes, you know, what's the cost of oil? Because
Warranty.
the labor at Public Works is,
I don't think that I'm saying this because I don't like seniors. I'm pretty close to that right now, and, you know, and so.
I'm your friend.
The thing is as for the taxpayers and the voters, I mean, we should be very clear as to what we're getting into. What it's going to cost, and possibly there's other modes of transportation with taxi vouchers and things like that, but I think it's right to know what you're getting into before you make a purchase.
you just voted $171,288 to outside agencies. How about we take a couple thousand out of there, put it in the budget to support this vehicle?
I would guess that I would be able
Thank you.
to get a ballpark from CAP
Cindy,
about what operating maintenance.
How many
costs
trips
would
do
be.
you plan to take, or how many trips
Well,
are
that's
made?
part of the grant that we'd have to work through, but she could just do a generalization, you know, a ballpark, and I'm sure she can give us that information, and I can bring that back to you next week. It's not obviously gonna be exact, but it'll give you an idea of what that would be, because they've done this enough.
Thank you.
Can we leave the money in for now
Please.
and talk about this again?
Well, we already voted it in. We already voted it in.
Yeah, you now
All
have a
right,
budget,
all right.
a complete budget.
Yeah.
So the total of all departments comes to $5,147,196. Once you add in all the warrant articles where they all to pass, we were upwards of $12,500,000, something like that.
Is the operating budget up and down?
The operating budget is down slightly, very slightly. About
Even with that
$12,000.
3,000?
Still $9,300
Okay.
down from last year. So, Neva,
Must have been the holiday candy.
It's out. Am I looking at department approval? Oh,
you're
selectmen's
looking at
approval.
2019
you're right.
budget
Okay.
versus selectmen's approved.
It's this budget right here.
And you have to add in $3,000
Yeah.
to the selectmen's approved.
Yeah.
So I have a couple of questions as we're going to publish the budget on the website, for people to start looking at. Do you want to include these note items underneath the lines? And also, as we go to town meeting, do you want those printed in the town report?
We haven't in the past. It doesn't matter to me either
I think we
way.
did
We
last
did
year.
last year.
Yeah, but
Did we? I
Uh,
think
the
it
year
helps
before,
people.
though.
it saves paper if we don't, but I'd just like to know what the board would prefer.
I'm about full disclosure.
Yeah, it might answer questions,
It doesn't
You
matter
want to
either
save
way.
time or paper?
Yeah.
Time at the district, at the town meeting, or time on paper?
Time.
It better educates the public as to what it might
Okay,
be.
so is that a consensus then?
Yeah.
Leave the notes in?
Yes.
Yeah,
All right, so they'll be in, for any of the printed copies as well as the annual report. And I'll just go through with Jean and make sure that things are appropriate in the notes. I think they are, and we had corrected some spelling error in the past, so I think the board's looked at all those as well. The only other thing I've got is just to sort of let you know the things I'm working on. I didn't have time to produce a report for you tonight, but I've got the year end I'm working feverishly on and starting the audit. And then also still working on the collective bargaining agreement, supporting what needs to be done for the police building study committee, and then just a myriad of other things. So just bear with me if you need more information, particularly in these reports that you're going to be getting. So the automated reports, they're going to be more timely than I am in getting to them because there's about 22 different schedules that have to be reconfigured for a new year. And some of those reconfigurations I've automated, so it's very easy to do and very quick. But just as a, for instance, all the payroll objects that go in, where we have each of the departments updating their payroll, and it feeds into the department schedules, and then the department schedules feed into the payroll system. That all had to be redone. Each time at the end of the year, it has to be done for the new year. So, so there's a whole hierarchy of these things. So if you get something and you think, well, that doesn't look right, it probably isn't. And it probably won't be for a week or two. So just bear with me if you will. And other than that, unless you have any questions for me?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Pat.
I'd like to address the 194,500. I can't tell you how many phone calls that I've gotten on this. And the easiest way that I can explain this to the questions and the way that the questions are being asked of me is if the townspeople voted 194,500 in a warrant article last year, it's a debt for last year. Why are we trying to put it in and confuse people this year to add it to our police building? So it's 4.716, but we're gonna add 194.5 onto that. It's confusing people even more. It's last year's debt. Why didn't we take care of it last year?
Well, so as was discussed, and what the plan was last year was that if the construction was approved, that we would hold off on, securing any note or debt on 194,000 until we, knew whether the construction was going to be approved. Because the more money that's pooled together, the lower our rate. So if we went out and got a note for 194,500, it would, which we still could do. We had 5 years from the approval time to execute it before it expires. This is really a difference between the authority and the execution. So the warrant articles are asking for the authority to bond. The 4.7 million for the police building is not the bond itself. It's the authority to bond 4.7 million, just as the 194,000 was the same. So by adding those two together, we could, theoretically have a lower interest rate than if we went out and did them separately. And the same goes for the sewer debt. If the sewer bond passes at town meeting, because it's not paid for by users, because it's paid for by taxation, the sources of revenue are the same, and it's spread across the town, we can combine all three of those into one offering and probably have our best rate and best terms available. So, and maybe, and I apologize if during the discussion of, how that bond would look, because there's a difference between the bond that we'd be getting and the authority to approve this warrant article, that it can be confusing. But I think it's just important if we can reaffirm and remind people that, this is what was discussed last year. Hopefully that would explain it. The alternative is, if the board wished to go ahead and bond that now or get a short-term note for it or something like that, we could certainly do it. I can get rates and, so it's not to say that we have to wait. I think we would be in a better financial position if we were to wait and combine it.
Thank you. You've explained it just the way I was hoping you would to the public.
Anything else for me?
Yes, why do we have 19 hours of special duty in town hall?
I'm sure that is an error. In town hall?
Town hall, special duty, 19.
So that had to have been an error. Yeah, that wouldn't have been special duty for town hall. That's a total of 19 hours for the town.
Finance manager needed protection.
Yeah, you can scratch it out. So remember that part about bear with me at the end of the year?
I know.
Okay.
I just
All
didn't
right.
sign it until I knew.
And I'm sure that is, I know exactly what that is, as a matter of fact. Okay. Very good.
I have one more question.
Technology running amok.
Yeah.
Pat, go ahead.
Pay time off,
Yes, so
I didn't see it listed.
the carryover. So the carryover will occur this next pay period because we still have December 30th and 31st fall. Anyone taking those days off would still be 2019 paid time off. So this is the first week when those days would be used up. So in the accrual sheet for next week, you'll see not only what their balances were prior to the 30th and 31st, but you'll also see any activity on the 30th and 31st that fall back into 2019 paid time off. And then you'll see anyone that lost time over 60 hours. And there are at least three or maybe three that I'm aware of, maybe a fourth, but certainly three that I'm aware of that are going to lose time over the 60 hours, one of which I believe the board is aware of. And that's, that's just in keeping with the policy. Each year, I went back and just did a little history for Jeannie at one point. Each year, there have been probably 4 or 5 people who have lost time at the end of the year, for one reason or another.
It's typically the same people.
Oftentimes the same people. And I can tell you that the paid time off reports, as I'm sure you know, as you click delete on them, they come not only to you every week, but they also go to the department heads every week, and then every employee on their pay stub has a summary of their paid time off, how much they've earned, how much they've used, how much was carried from the prior year, and what the balance is. So, and then Jeannie, I can tell you from religiously and very consistently since the beginning of November, has been talking to department heads where some of their employees had a great deal of paid time off, and especially in the police department where they also had balances on comp time and other things that would factor into their year-end schedules. So
I think she started back in September.
I think so. So there's been a all-out effort to try to make sure that people are aware and and to be aware and take advantage of what they could.
Thank you,
But we can't force them. All right.
thank you.
Okay, thanks, Tim. Okay, the next thing we have at 5:30. Running a little late here. We also have the new warrant article for construction of sewer line.
So I'm gonna hand out, 'cause I didn't know if you kept it in your books, the warrant articles that we looked at the last time we met. There's only one outstanding that is, that you haven't voted on, and that was 8, that was on milfoil. I mean, we haven't voted on the total budget because we don't have that number yet, final. So that's one thing I'd like you to look at, is if you're willing to take a vote and get that warrant article approved on milfoil. And then I'm gonna hand out copies of some language for a bond for the sewer, for a project for the sewer here in Tilton. And I'm guessing either Catherine or Peter can speak to that.
So this is the new warrant.
So maybe we could start with the easy one, which is the Article 8.
I'm going to make a motion that we recommend the appropriation of the sum of $6,000 to the Lake Improvement Maintenance Capital Reserve Fund.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Article 5, make a motion that we approve Article 5 for $35,000 for the Highway Equipment Capital Reserve Fund.
We've actually already done that.
We did? All
We
right.
did all of them.
Yeah, you've done all of them
Okay.
except for Article 9 and Article 4, Article 10. So
Article 9, 10, and 4.
we've done Article 3. We voted on Article 3, Article 5, Article 6, Article 7, and Article 8. Article 4 and Article 9, we need, the numbers. We need to find out.
Yeah, we need the numbers in Article 10. Okay.
Right.
Got it, so we're done with that.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose you could vote on Article 10, that's,
So I guess the next thing that we have is the warrant article for the construction of the sewer line, so perhaps somebody in the sewer commission can explain more what it is.
You're the chair.
So,
No, you're pretty.
let's see, I think our last project was completed over a decade ago. This is the next one that's been in the loop. It's a section of sewer from near the town line of Franklin, coming back to the east, stopping just prior to the Winnisquam Regional High School to bring sewer to the west end of West Main Street. There's also an alternate to go up Clark Road partway with it. This would tie in the sewer on pretty much the west end of town along the Route 3 corridor, along the river. You've got some large parcels there that with sewer you may see some decent development down in the future. Let's see. Anything else, Catherine?
Well, we can start pumping the septic tank at the town garage. You have some private systems that are very close to the river. One section, what, 4 or 5 of them? Those would be brought back onto the system. That's why.
Does this mean because the selectmen, we control the money, we control the project?
Say again?
It's because we control the money,
does that mean we control the project?
No, you don't control the sewer monies.
There you go, but it says that the selectmen, which are representative of the town, are the ones that apply for, obtain, accept, and that means where the town is responsible for it, and yet the selectmen would have no say in that, is what I'm understanding.
So, there's discussion out there on whether or not the sewer commissioners have authority to bond. 99% would say, no, they don't, only the selectmen do. So if the sewer commissioners are going to bond a project, it has to go through the Board of Selectmen. But it also says in 149 that those sewer funds do not commingle with the selectmen's funds, the general funds. They stay with sewer, and those sewer funds are managed by the sewer commissioners. The Department of Revenue Administration approved this Friday. In fact, they changed it. Just my opinion, out of selectmen everywhere, because I don't think they understand what a sewer commissioner is.
Go ahead, Peter.
Basically, it's, selectmen are authorizing the bond, and then everything goes back to the sewer to maintain the construction. No different than if your police building goes, then we go to Milestone and they take over. The selectmen are sort of saying, yes, we approve this bond, no different than we're gonna do the same with like the police.
With Milestone, we have
Oversight.
oversight.
Mm-hmm.
With this, we would have no oversight.
That's correct.
Correct.
Just as the Board of Selectmen didn't in all the other sewer projects.
You have a question?
Yeah, just some point of clarification. So if you're trying to raise $2.5 million in a bond to do this construction work for the sewer system, and I as a taxpayer would foot that bill, but I'm on a septic system. So I just wanted to make sure I had that
Yep.
clear, because
Yep.
it's similar to me like solar panels.
Right. Yep.
Somebody's getting a benefit,
Mhm.
I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody benefits from sewer. Everybody benefits. I remember when you couldn't swim in Lake Winnisquam.
Clean water.
Right.
Clean power.
So
So,
Cleaner.
everybody benefits from sewer. Everybody benefits from the revenue from those properties along the lake that are assessed higher than the other properties because of their value. If you had a lake full of septic, I guess they wouldn't be assessed very high. You have properties down there, big pieces of commercial property that could be developed. Probably, most likely developed if you have municipal sewer. Everyone in town benefits from that revenue of those developed properties.
Pat, did you have a question?
yeah, more of a statement than a question, I guess, or maybe both. But a few years back when we voted at town meeting to put the burden of the sewer projects, spreading it out to the taxpayers, and I believe it was the Silver Lake project.
It was all of them.
Amongst others. It was
All of them. Well, the intent was, the burden was so astronomical on the lower income portion of the Silver Lake project that people couldn't afford, the users couldn't afford the project, because whatever you had, what was the name that you had for the funding, that they all were given a number that they had to pay for that project? Betterment, sorry, I'm off my game, I'm not feeling well. So the betterment was destroying them, and they couldn't afford that. So we went to town meeting at that time, years ago, and said, these people can't afford it, and we need to spread that among the town and the taxpayers voted to do that. Now we're adding more projects onto that. Isn't there a point where that balance now becomes a burden that becomes too astronomical, that more people can't afford that? not just the people that had the betterment. You know, so it swings the other way. Your intent was to get so that people with the betterment couldn't afford it, and to spread it out equally among all the taxpayers, because everybody benefited from the sewer. As you said, everybody benefits from the sewer, but now you're putting, you know, it was a few $1 million project at that point, and then we added another project onto that that was already in existence, so there was 2 or 3 projects that we added and spread it out with the taxpayers. Now we add a $2.5 million project onto that, instead of a betterment for those that are only affected by this project down there. Doesn't it become overburdened to the taxpayers? You see where I'm
Well,
going with
except
that?
that the intent was not just because the betterment fees may have had a negative impact on some of those affected. But it was more of the fact that all the voters at town meeting, whether they have, like I'm on septic, I'll never have the benefit of sewer, get to vote on these warrant articles. So I, as a person who will never have sewer, well,
You don't know that.
they're not gonna suddenly jump up, connect me, and then go
It's
down.
unlikely, I
Because I'm the
understand.
only one.
It's unlikely.
But the point is, if I can vote and put that burden on a taxpayer, I can vote yes for all the sewer projects. It's never gonna affect me. I'm never gonna pay for it,
For betterments.
the betterments. So I'm voting to put that burden, as you put it, on somebody else. I have that right to vote and say, yeah, I'm gonna vote for those sewer projects, I'm an environmentalist, I'm gonna reap the benefits of all of that,
So
but I'm not gonna have to pay for any of it, so of course I'm gonna vote yes.
But how much taxes will this affect people? $2.5 million. How much
I have a couple questions.
will that affect our taxes?
What's the total cost of the project?
Exactly what is the project?
2.5 million?
So if it's 2.5 million, aren't there funds that are put aside, capital reserve account for, is any of that's been, the user been paying for these things? That's what I thought. Are any of those funds being used towards reducing this cost?
If you go to this document, you can see our 2019 budget was 508,000. Our actuals was 691.
Hang on a second.
The sewer
That would be
commission.
what, 35% increase over the budget?
131,000.
Something came up that we had to address. We addressed it.
The sewer commissioners don't have capital reserve funds.
It's a maintenance
Well, how
account.
much is in your budget now?
When you say in the budget,
Well,
in the
You don't
in the
just-
reserve account?
yeah,
We don't have a reserve account, it's a
Our
maintenance.
maintenance reserve, it's a maintenance.
It's a maintenance account. It's not a
So you do
reserve.
have an account.
Yes.
It's for maintenance of the existing lines.
then why are you adding it onto the budget then? If you spent $200,000 in the budget and for maintenance, why are you adding it back onto this?
We're not.
Well, you asking for it this year.
This is,
What for this year? The 701, that's more work coming because of another paving project. Since we haven't had a 10-year plan to plan out these projects in advance, we've got slammed the last 2 years, and we're gonna wipe out like 50% of our maintenance account.
right.
So we don't have any money to put toward other projects to help reduce the cost.
So $2.5 million, how much does that add to our taxes?
Let's see, 14 cents on 100,000. I'm going by Kevin's presentation roughly, so it's about 15 cents a 100,000, I think.
Actually, I did run for the sewer administrator today, based on the 2.5 million at I think it was a 25-year, and it came out to be 22 cents per thousand. So $100,000 property would be $22, and any multiple after that.
$22 per year for the term of the bond?
22,000 per
Correct.
100.
Yeah, per 100,000,
$22 per
Yeah.
100,000
per 100,000 of
Per
value.
year,
per year.
25 years.
Yeah.
And this goes from, where are you, Aroma Joe's or something, down by there?
High school,
Oh, the high
approximately.
school,
Down
Big
to,
one.
down to the line?
just before the town line.
There's already
And up Clark Road.
sewer to the high school.
But there's no
That's a
water down
question.
there.
Yeah, coming from this side, Joe.
There's water down in the town line area.
Yeah, but there's
So
no
that
water
would
in
put the
between.
lines together.
No water in between,
No,
right?
this other line's
Yeah.
going.
So there's still a gap between the high school and
No, we're
the
gonna close the gap. It's just
That's
a
my
flowing.
question. That was my question. I hate to see one or two properties just left out in no man's land. As a beneficiary of the betterment change, I feel compelled to vote in favor of it. You guys helped me pay for mine, and I'm a big believer in not putting your effluence, is that the right
Effluent.
word?
Effluent.
All right, into the ground. Seems short-sighted if there are other options, and goes in the water. My grandchildren are gonna drink that water. Their children will drink that water.
I think that, I'm not gonna vote on this. I feel very strongly that the townspeople needs to vote on this.
Oh, yeah,
So
and they're gonna
I
have a chance
really
because
need
it's on the warrant.
Right.
So
They'll be-
we're just going to approve.
But if I vote to
Yeah.
approve it, that means that I'm approved, that
You're
the
approved.
perception is that I'm in favor of it, but I don't have all that much information to say that I'm in favor or not in favor.
So-
I'd like them to all go forward without that.
So I would-
Even the budget
Yeah,
committee or the
exactly.
selectmen, just
So
let
I-
it be a blank
Just,
slate.
you're letting it go forward, you're not voicing your opinion to let the voters decide, you're getting it to them.
Well,
Whether you're for or against doesn't matter, you're giving them the ultimate choice.
no,
I mean, there is a line there that says.
it's
recommend-
recommended
I
by the,
understand.
right.
You can say no and they can override us, we can say yes and they can say no, it's,
Right.
so
Well, they need our permission to put it on the warrant. And I think it's a good idea to go on the warrant to have the discussion at town meeting and let the voters decide.
Okay, so I'm looking at this a little bit of a quandary because technically, if you guys are the sewer, you're producing this article and asking the selectmen to do it. So we have two selectmen that can't vote, one that's going to
We can
abstain
vote.
from.
It's
I'm
already
real.
been taken care of.
By who?
I did have a conversation with NHMA, and I'll just read you exactly what they wrote to me. To start, we think there is no conflict of interest with the two select board members who are also sewer commissioner members. It appears more as though they have a different political point of view rather than have something to gain from the sewer line extension. Therefore, we are unaware of any reason why all 5 select board members would be unable to participate in Thursday's debate over the sewer line extension. They go on to talk about the confusion over RSA 149 and say that that statute, you had mentioned it earlier, Catherine, and I know Catherine I think disagrees with NHMA on this, but they say that statute applies to private-public partnerships, and this is not a private-public partnership, this is only public. So really the question was, and me, having never worked in a town that had a sewer commission, I needed direction on, where does this go? And in talking to NHMA, it does need to come to the select board for you, because you are in control of the warrant. So you decide whether it goes on the warrant or not. Now, if you decide tonight you don't want to, the sewer commission has another option of a petition warrant article, just like everyone else does. So, there is no,
I
the
don't,
bottom line is, there is no conflict of interest.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Thanks for doing
Yeah.
that ahead of time. I'm sitting there scratching my head how we do this. Okay, so we do have sufficient selectmen to vote. Just need a motion.
I'll make a motion to put the proposed sewer warrant article onto the warrant.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Decline to vote.
Motion passes.
So that was it
To
4?
recommend,
Okay, 4 to 1 and 1 decline.
yes.
Or to place it on the budget.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean in the
On
warrant.
That's right. My motion was to place it on the warrant. It wasn't to recommend or not recommend.
Right.
Well, hang on, the wording of this,
You can't change the wording of it.
you can't change the wording, but you are voting, and it is going to say that it is recommended by the selectmen.
No, it isn't.
Why would it?
My understanding is two
Says
votes.
right
One for the Board of Selectmen to put it in their warrant. Now there's going to be a vote, do we recommend it or not recommend it?
No?
You can do it that way,
I
Catherine.
suppose.
You can do it that way.
Why wouldn't we? We make a decision to put all these articles in the warrant, and then we decide later whether we want to approve, recommend or not recommend.
Right.
So are you making a motion for that now? or-
Well, I can get, to put it out there, I'll make a motion, we're gonna vote on this, right?
This is to recommend.
I'll make a motion to recommend,
And actually, now that I say that, oh, well, you have voted on the other warrant article, so yes, this would be the appropriate time.
I'll make a motion to recommend the sewer bond article.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion, so everybody is clear on that? Okay, all those in favor of recommending the sewer bond article, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Me.
I decline to vote.
6. One declined, one opposed, 3 in favor.
Right,
That's my vote.
so the selectmen are up next.
Joe?
I will cede my time to Selectman Scanlon.
Okay. Well, thanks.
Sure.
Yes, you know, we're starting a new year, and I think the only thing we can do is look back and say all the great things of our employees in this town have done for all of us. It's absolutely stellar, interdepartmental, or the employees as individuals, whether it's the police department, the public works, the offices right here in town, and all the volunteers. We just got through the year, our 150th anniversary year, and we had so many people in this town that volunteered to help out and step forward. It's a stellar for everybody to come forward and do that. One of the things that I'd like to see going into 2020 is actually coordinating all of that and doing what I learned a long time ago when we were LRCSC was mapping of our assets. A lot of people don't realize that what assets we have in our town. And a lot of times we go and we say, well, we need to get some gardens put in, or we need to get some pointing done, or something fixed, or something to do it. Let's go out and get bids. Well, a lot of times we're not just sitting there with an empty cup to fill it with bids from the outside. We actually have a full cup here. And that's all the residents in this town. And just the way the last year they stepped forward, if we can go and spend some time and map the assets, the individuals in this town, whether they can weed gardens, they can paint things. Look, the kids from the school came forward and did that. And all of these things, we have an incredible treasure right here in town. And I think all of us have friends and other people in town that we can talk to and start mapping our assets and making a list of that. And I think this would be a good year to start that. But that's it for me, and we're off to a new year. Thanks.
I just have a couple of things. Cedar Street we have 2 very large potholes in our new road, right in the center.
I saw this.
They're getting larger. The other thing is that I have heard over the last 3 weeks from neighbors, Chief, that actually it's been going on a little bit longer than that because I had to repair a tire from a beer bottle, Bud Light beer bottle, up by Eric Pires, the corner of High and Cedar, in the middle of the road when it was gravel. But now that it's asphalt, people are picking up glass bottles in Cedar Street all the way up. I've gotten 4 phone calls from different neighbors in the area that are finding them broken in their driveways, and some in the middle of Cedar Street, that they're gone out and swept it up. So something's going on up there. So if we can maybe...
Patrol
yeah. But that's very different up there. So that's all I got.
Okay, next we have Catherine.
I just have a couple of things.
Couple.
I don't know if anybody's had an opportunity to look at the proposed policy for board committee members, alternates. Anything you wanted to add, change?
Did you send it?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I believe you handed it out to everyone, didn't you, last?
Oh, do you want me to send it? I gave everybody a copy of the original and then the one that was changed. If it's easier, I can send it out.
So maybe,
I'd just like to get it in place before town meeting, because that's typically when they sign up and then everybody knows.
Is that all it is right there? Just that? Can I just quickly,
You can have this.
let me just quickly read it.
Do you think you could send it out, because I want to make sure we get it perfectly right this time? There were a couple suggestions that
Yep.
I think you corrected them.
Well, I just ad-libbed and made some.
I do remember this, yes.
send out.
Yes, I was okay with that. I was actually good with that. I do have that.
Okay, I'll send it out. Maybe we can look at it next week.
Yeah, that'd be good.
I'll look at,
Decision on.
Put it to bed.
yeah, get it done. The other thing, so I was thinking about the letter we got from the wetland scientist that was bringing to our attention the invasive species that's in, along New Hampshire DOT and on private properties, et cetera, et cetera. And we kind of just, I agreed it wasn't our problem and threw it aside, but it really, this is one of those things, will aggressively colonize Gulfbrook upstream and downstream to the Winnipesaukee River. And anybody that's gone down the Winnipesaukee River from Silver Lake down to about McDonald's knows that we can't afford any more aggressive weeds in that river.
Maybe it'll slow down the milfoil.
Yeah, I hope it eats milfoil. But I'm just thinking that we should, partner, forward his letter with a letter of our own to New Hampshire DOT to see if they have any plans to combat this. I don't know if DES or who would. I don't think we should just let it go. I think we should make sure that
Pursue the responsible parties.
yeah, our state representatives know that we're concerned as well.
I don't think it's our responsibility, but it may turn out to be, I don't know.
I
We should pursue it.
don't think it's a financial burden our taxpayers should endure, but I do think we should, aggressively let them know that we're concerned as well. That's it, thank you.
Now, one other thing.
No, that's my other thing.
No, you don't, you have one other.
I do?
Yes. Riverfront parking. The email.
Oh, yes, we do. And I did talk to the chief, responded to me earlier. We still have an issue with parking in Riverfront Park's parking lot. The LaPierre's has events, and all their patrons fill our parking lot. And a lot of people think that the park is closed in the winter, but it's not. It is actively used. Cross-country skiers, snowshoers, sledders are using the park. It's open year-round, so it does present a problem. It does present a problem year-round. The chief said that he would, that going forward, we would try to implement, and I say we, but the chief mainly, will try to get something going so we can do something about this, to actively keep our park available to patrons.
It's been a problem, they can't find a place to park.
Well, I have had, in the past few, probably 2 or 3 years, and this year as well, I've had people approach me. Most recent was late summer, they approached me, and they really, it was quizzical. They didn't know what the alternatives were. They had gone there, they didn't have a reservation, they weren't using the kitchen, but they were gonna have an impromptu birthday party, I believe. Young kids, I believe it was 1st or 2nd grade. There was absolutely no place for them to park. They were going to use the handicap drop-off to drop off their supplies, but where they had such a large amount of young kids, very young kids, they didn't want to park at the church and have to get them across Route 3 with no crosswalk. And all of the spaces along the river, I guess, were taken as well.
Oh, Mill Street, they didn't know.
We can't use Mill Street,
I thought that was part of the deal. Last time I was down there, the gates were open.
but they don't allow patrons of Riverfront Park to use Mill Street. We've never
We
been
have to
able
keep
to,
our spaces
never
open.
been able to come to an agreement. They always wanted first dibs on the parking, and, you know, it just wouldn't work, so I just wanted you to be aware of that.
And you have one other issue? The issue of elections, at the starting time of the
Oh.
election.
Thank you. It's nice to have so many brains with me. Yes, I think I sent that email out to everybody so we could discuss it tonight. Chuck Mitchell had asked me to bring it to the board. He would like us to start the elections at 7 o'clock. I think all of us who have helped at the elections over the years have known that residents have asked for that earlier date, especially those that work. And so since that's our decision to make, he would like us to consider having the elections start at 7 instead of 8.
Well, the last time we had a presidential primary, they were lined all the way up around and out the door at the beginning.
Yeah.
So I think for that one, at least, 7 o'clock is a good idea.
Is that a motion?
So moved.
I'll second it.
Was that for just one?
Just one. What we do in the future remains to be seen, but I will definitely make the motion for the upcoming election.
For the primary?
For the primary slash,
So you want to try it?
I want to try it.
All right, so let's
I want to try it.
I'll still second it.
Okay, under discussion, we have to make sure that this change gets made public and that they know that they can come. No sense in us dragging everybody down there earlier if there's going to be 10 people.
Mhm.
I know that we need to have more time for those early morning people for this, and I'm sure of it, but we need to advertise it.
That's, election date is solidified now, is that correct, Jimmy? They can't,
February 11th.
yeah, they can't change that, can they?
No, it's been set.
So we could actually put something on the website
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, post a notice out in posting notices places.
The magic flashing sign?
Any other
It's
discussion on
getting
the
cold,
motion
Catherine. Battery.
Any other discussion on that motion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? So
Jamie,
moved
thank you for
unanimously.
reminding me. Would've been awful.
Anything else, Catherine?
I don't think so.
That concludes
Good
Catherine's
Lord.
Yeah, it concludes Catherine's part.
performance today. Peter,
I'm good.
that's it. Okay, sounds good. Anybody else, anything more? Okay. I was going to switch it around to the town administrator's report. Before the chief, that's okay?
I'll be quick. So the first item on my, under action items is the winter maintenance policy. That is in the folder to be signed. I just wanted to make sure everybody saw it. Second item, I don't know if anyone has any questions, but if not, I will move on. The second item is the outchip agreement. I gave you all a copy of that a couple weeks ago to accept the grant, and I have the signature page with me. If you are in concurrence, there's only one signature line.
Make a motion to subrogate our authority to the chairman for the purposes of signing this document.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Good that word from you.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
All right.
Sorry about that.
Thank you.
I didn't
No, no,
throw
no,
it
that's,
at you.
that's fine. I didn't get hit. So there are some outstanding items that I wanted to just briefly go over with you. There was a question asked, I think, the last time we met about testing done. There was a line item for $15,000. This has to do with the police station. And I did ask Milestone about that, and they responded back by saying all testing would be done by one of many testing companies in the state. Milestone typically does not contract direct. It's intended for third-party inspection testing company to complete as per special inspection requirements of the IBC. Some view it as strange if the contractor is testing themselves. They've done it both ways. Milestone has done it both ways, but most of the time the owner takes it on, and they had asked us in the beginning if that's the way we wanted to do it, was have the owner take it on, and that was the decision that was made. They will, however, assist in the process of getting the proposals and coordinating the schedule when they need to be doing the testing.
But isn't Milestone our construction manager?
They are our construction manager, but what they're saying
But
is
they're
that,
not physically doing the work.
well, but they're hiring people, and so it's the people that they're hiring. I'm not making an argument, I'm just
Oh, no,
telling you
no,
what
I
they're
understand,
saying.
I'm just trying to
And they're
understand their
saying
position.
it's viewed as strange. And like they said, they've done it both ways, but typically the owner, they hire a third party to do the testing so that it's,
So that was one of the items that had a cost figure, right?
no, it did, 15,000.
Did it?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's my recollection.
I didn't bring it with me, so.
Catherine talked about the elections, we talked about the bus, and then the only other outstanding, actually two more. Bittern Lane. We had a discussion, the water company was here. How does this board want to move forward? We got a list of things that we thought we wanted, but I came away from that meeting thinking we weren't quite ready. And if we're gonna put a warrant article on to do this, to make this transfer, this conveyance, we need to get working on it. So I just need some direction from the board, what you wanna do. Do you want me to call the property owner that abuts Bittern Lane and ask if they want to accept the conditions that I understand, and there are a list of them.
I can't imagine they want to own that water main.
I would agree.
But I am very surprised that the current owner of the water main can suddenly just say, we don't own this anymore. It's now yours. I just don't see how they can do that.
Unless they were given an easement for it, because you'd have to have an easement.
They would definitely have to have an easement to maintain it, to have access to it, just like we have sewer easements to maintain and access. But I just, would that be the Public Utilities Commission to ask that question of?
I could do some research on it.
Could you? Because I think that's the biggest problem with this Bittern Lane transaction. I don't know how the rest of you feel, but I
The
think that.
wetlands.
The wetlands,
I do, but I
the
think that's
wetlands as well for me.
Yeah, I think
the
that's the
wetlands
biggest issue
protection.
now. I think that the,
I don't think we'll have an issue with the wetlands protection if there's contingencies in the transfer of the property
no,
in there. I don't think we'll have an issue with that, John. But that whole water main thing really disturbs me.
We have an issue with it now. They plow the snow way too close to the pond. They've built their upper property. But the limited amount of times I went up there, it doesn't look like they were, strictly speaking, doing the best thing for the wetlands.
well, there were some problems that took place early on, but
Haven't been up there in a while.
that was a planning issue, and the planning board did what they did. I can't say I
Well,
agreed with it, but that's what happened.
They just
The
brought some new
wetlands, they
applications.
hire, so the first time I discovered that they were plowing snow where they shouldn't have, the owner and the property manager weren't aware. Should they have been? Yes. But were they? No. But I found them very, very cooperative when it was brought to their attention, and they corrected it immediately. I am surprised that they continue to do so.
I was gonna say, every time you bring it to their attention, they correct it.
Right.
But
I'm
they keep going back to it.
But my experience with them is that of cooperation and wanting to do right. So
And the other,
it does puzzle me.
you'll recall that Chuck Mitchell was in to voice a weigh-in on Conservation Commission, and one of the things that he said was that they'd need to put a guardrail all along Bittern Lane from routes 3 to 11 back to the wooded area where they recently placed Jersey barriers. They'd want this fenced-in area to be open to the public year-round. So there's a multitude of things. I have not contacted the property owner because I can put this list together and give it to him and say, this is what it's gonna take. Are you still interested? Or,
I don't think we can, I don't think the expectation is for them to live up to every single one of those things. It's not.
I think we should table this until next year. It's to try and get a warrant article together, and there's so many ifs.
I don't think we need to table it. We have plenty of time. There's no money's involved.
Right.
But I think
It's an
that,
asset.
I think that asking them to put in a guardrail and go to that expense, could they just as we did at Salmon Run, why couldn't they just place large
A barrier.
type rocks?
A barrier.
Right.
well, ultimately, it's your
Right.
decision. So
Right.
why don't I do this? Why don't I research, whether it's a Public Utilities Commission or whoever it is about the water issue. I'll put together a list for all of you. You can look at it and say, well, this is unreasonable, or we could do it this way.
Right.
And then we'll have that, and hopefully I can have that together for you next week.
I think there'll be a happy resolve somewhere in the middle.
I think that's a great idea. Thank you, Jimmy.
Yeah.
Did you have a comment?
Just a question, this is a town road currently.
Yes.
Yes, you
And they've
familiar with the road?
Yes,
Yeah.
and they've approached us on wanting to take it over?
No, we've approached them.
Oh, okay,
It only serves that business.
right.
There's
But I
also
would
an
think there'd be a
entrance
value to
Otto's
them because it is a
property.
paved road that goes up to their driveway, so I would be looking for money from them, compensation.
Yeah, the other thing is, the auto serve lot, which used to be the Agway, is up for sale again, and that's an entrance to that, lot for traffic
There's
and
an
all that
entrance on
control.
there, yep.
They would
So-
have to have a right of way.
They would have to,
Might be one in their deed already.
And,
let's,
and then
Yes.
one other, we did get a, from the DES, the Wetlands Bureau, minor impact wetland permit application from MB Tractor. Rather than making 5 copies, I just wanted to find out, does anyone want me to make a copy of this so you can look at it?
Where will you have it?
We'll have it in the office.
Right on the
Read it.
Yeah.
file? Okay.
I'll put it
If you have it there, I don't need a copy, I'll just grab it.
if the Conservation Commission reviewed that at their last meeting and found a whole bunch of errors and wrote comments to DES, so you might want to get a hold of that. There were errors in it and inconsistencies in pipe sizes, culverts, and a lot of stuff was wrong with it.
So we've decided that the February 11th election is going to start at 7 in the morning, and it's going to be at the high school. And I know we're still trying to, have we decided about March elections and the town meeting, where that's going to be? I know you're still researching the Bruton Center as a possible, but
Unless
I
we
don't,
have it at the town garage, we should tell the high school we need to have these. I mean, the Saturday deliberative session usually isn't a problem, because
Okay.
school isn't in session. But the second Tuesday of March, we should let them know that we'd like to have the elections there and make sure that there's no interference with it, with setup,
okay. All right, and
don't you
then,
think?
Yes.
And then we'll,
and then finally, the replacement of the tree. Who would you like me to get quotes from for a tree replacement, and what kind of tree?
Weeping Willow.
No,
Mr. Berquist was talking in the Oaks. I'm not sure which sub-variety.
I was jabbing John.
5 years, this is going to go off the stage.
Yeah, I think there are root problems.
Yeah.
Personally, I think it would be very nice to have a sugar maple that brings back the colors so beautiful on the island that people go out there and take pictures with and all that. And I'd like to have a point planted on sort of like the other side to block out some of the factory that's behind there.
Well, and if you recall, the recommendation from Tim Berquist was to put it farther away from an area where people would trample over the roots and hurt the tree.
And he did recommend an oak. He said that that water environment wasn't very good for people.
Right, that's my recollection. But I'll have to go back and read the report again. But I guess,
I went to contact Bob Hardy. He has great connections
For
for
the trees.
trees. He got it, you know, he was able to help us get this tree up front.
And that still leaves a hole in that spot.
But
Planting it over on the other side blocks off the
I would-
hardwoods and or whatever it is that's
but
with.
it does leave more open space for
I would,
people.
I would put it on our side of the island.
Well, apparently the.
Except it blocks view from the roads, which is handy for the police department going by to see anything.
But once an oak grows up, you can take the few bottom branches off, and then you're looking past the trunk.
Okay, so I will
I
ask
can see
Bob
both.
Hardy for some recommendations for places to give us a quote on a 4-inch diameter. I guess we'll get sizes and see from different sizes what that will cost.
I would talk to him about that. I mean, I don't know what our capability is of planting a very large mature tree.
Okay.
You have to be
What the
dropping
likely,
just
you know,
to
what's
make
our
it
best
work.
chance of survival?
So we're
I
only
don't
going
know
with
what the
oak?
answer is.
Oak is what we're gonna have because Sam said so? Is that what we got? Or was it, who's the guy, Sam Berkowitz?
Oh, Tim
Tim
Berkowitz.
Berkowitz?
Tim. Meredith.
That's the son of the
Oh, what
same
do you think?
killer.
I think we should look into having a sugar maker on there. And, I mean, the other one lasted, like 150 years, and there's other maples over there that are pretty good.
Can we get recommendations for both?
Yes, I will do that.
Thank you.
Did we pick one?
No, I'm getting recommendations for both. No weeping willow, though.
No
No.
willows. Beautiful trees, but
We're gonna have a tree though, right?
I'm
Yeah.
done. Do you have any questions for me?
you passed out a flyer, Smart Approaches to
That was
Marijuana in New
directed
Hampshire,
to you.
Preventing Another Big Tobacco. This is, I don't agree with some of the conclusions in here. I think it's misleading. I think that they've cherry-picked their information for us to go and look at. Doesn't present the entire picture at all.
No, I got
This
it.
presents a nice list of reasons why we should opt out. Doesn't say anything about the reasons that maybe we should opt in. It's only one point of view. That's all I got to say.
Yep, and all I would say to you about that is what this is trying to prepare communities. I'm not, you know how I feel and I know how you feel.
That's right, that's right.
But this is to have a community prepared so that if it does come to pass that it's legalized, you as a community are saying, yes, we're okay with having commercial shops in our downtown, or no, we're not. Just like you
Not
have
just downtown, though.
well, you
This is
can't-
in town. We'd have to make zoning changes and all sorts of stuff according to them.
So that's really, it's for you to be prepared, and I would not be doing my job if I didn't try to prepare my select board for things that are to come.
And I appreciate this information. Is there another version of this that is more pro than this?
A little bit
To give us
tainted.
all the information as opposed
That's all the information you need to know.
We want the tainted view.
Who is Sam in New Hampshire? Smart approach.
smart approaches to marijuana?
Who is it?
There are people who don't want marijuana.
Well, I can see that, but who?
It's really about, it's giving the community, just like they did with Keno. You can opt in or opt out.
Yeah.
You're making that decision. You can, just like, maybe you wanted vape shops in the downtown, maybe you didn't. But it happened because you didn't plan for it. And maybe everybody's okay with having commercial in the downtown, and that's your decision. I'm just saying you need to be prepared.
Oh, I'm really prepared for this.
Just
Thank you very much for this information.
Just one more thing, just to remind everybody that there is a public hearing. The Tilton Board of Selectmen will be conducting a public hearing on Thursday, January 16th, 2020 at 6 p.m. The hearing will be held at Town Hall, second floor, meeting room at 257 Main Street, Tilton, New Hampshire. That's right here.
Right here.
Right here, yeah. To receive public comment on the warrant article. And the warrant article is for the police building and, did we actually approve that amount? Can we do, so $4,716,518. So, be there. I'm sure everybody else will.
Did you mention this?
I put it in your FYI.
I know that.
Uh-huh.
But did you mention it so that, like, people might know that?
Well, Joe, why don't you?
I think I will. In this quarter, January, February 2020, New Hampshire Magazine, they have a very nice article about downtown Tilton and some of the things you can do and some of the restaurants and attractions that you might encounter in downtown Tilton and Tilton in general. So I exhort you to pick that up and give it a read. It's very nice.
That isn't even until.
I know.
I get that.
Not only
You
that,
can't even see it from here.
Catherine, not only that, I don't know who initiated it because it wasn't me, but did you see where they say the historical marker is? It's right- See where it's at? It's right in the first paragraph.
Yeah. Okay, that's it.
But it's a good article.
It's nice that someone has written so positively about
Yes.
it. It's very nice.
It is, and mostly true.
So, is that it? I'm gonna make a motion that we go into non-public per RSA 91A:3, paragraph 2. Is that A or C?
Take them both, cover all bases.
A or C?
Going to five?
Constantino, yes.
Hold on.
Dawson, yeah.
Fogg, yes.
So that would be A.
Fogg is
Yes,
still
yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were finished.
Jessamine, yes. Everybody is yes? We are red is on. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to seal the minutes of the non-public session permanent, as they pertain to personnel issues.
Second.
A motion and a second.
That's all right, John.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So moved unanimously. Anything else to come before the Board of Selectmen this evening?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to your feet.
All those in favor say aye.
Oh, aye.
Opposed?
Oh, no, I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I said, this is genius. Prodding me.
So there's gambling now. See that?